My 18-year-old friend dressed as Spider-Man and climbed into my room. It was supposed to be just another night. Homework half done, my phone glowing beside me, and the sound of the city humming outside my window. But around 11:47 p.m., I heard the knock. Not on my door, on the glass. When I pulled back the curtain, I didn't expect to see a masked figure in red and blue clinging to the edge of my second-story window, breathing hard like he'd just swung from rooftop to rooftop. And then he said, in the calmest voice imaginable, "Open up. I need to tell you something." And I couldn't do it as me. What happened next changed everything between us. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the stories that will leave you speechless, smiling, or crying. Because sometimes the person behind the mask isn't hiding who they are. They're finally showing it. It started off like any other Thursday night. My room was a mess of open notebooks, soda cans, and clothes I swore I'd fold after dinner, but didn't. The hum of a late spring evening buzzed outside my window, and inside, everything felt still. Until the knock. Not the kind of knock you hear on your front door. No, this one came from glass, from my second-story bedroom window. At first, I froze. There was no reason anyone should be outside my room, let alone at this hour. My first thought? A prank. My second? A break-in. I slowly pulled back the curtain, and that's when I saw him. Spider-Man. Not the Spider-Man, obviously, but someone in full costume. The red and blue suit, the white eyes, even the black web lines perfectly stitched in. And he was crouched, holding the edge of my window frame, breathing like he'd just run 10 blocks. I blinked. What the? Then the voice came through the mask. Calm, familiar. "Open up, please. It's me." I stepped back, stunned. That voice. It was Mason, my best friend. We'd known each other since we were 12. Gamers, movie junkies, co-survivors of high school. Mason had just turned 18 2 weeks ago, and now, here he was, dressed like a Marvel hero, knocking on my window like it was some kind of teenage rom-com. I opened the latch slowly. "You're insane," I said as I pulled the window up. "You could have broken your neck." He climbed in with surprising grace for someone in a skin-tight suit. "I almost did," he muttered, pulling off the mask. His face was red from the heat, and his dark curls were plastered to his forehead. "The gutter's loose, by the way." I stared at him. "You climbed up here, in a Spider-Man suit, at midnight. Why?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he paced. The costume creaked slightly with each step, like it had never been worn before, or had been worn too many times in front of a mirror. "I couldn't say it as me," he finally said. I sat down on the edge of my bed, suddenly unsure if I was dreaming. "Mason? What's going on?" He stopped pacing, turned to face me. The city lights outside threw shadows across his jaw, and for a moment he didn't look like the boy I met in 6th grade. He looked older, nervous, real. "I needed you to see me like this," he said. "Not because I want to be Spider-Man, but because I needed a mask to tell the truth." "What truth?" He exhaled. Then he said it, soft, but without hesitation. "I like you." My heart stopped. I didn't breathe. My fingers gripped the bedspread like it might keep me from floating off the floor. "I've liked you for a long time," he continued, voice shaking now. "And I didn't know how to say it. Not as me. Not without something to hide behind. I couldn't move. Because somewhere, in the back of my mind, I'd wondered. Little things. The way he looked at me when I wasn't paying attention. The way he always sat just a little closer than necessary. the way he never really looked at anyone else the same way he looked at me. But I never thought it would be real. I never thought he would be the one to say it first, especially not like this. "I'm sorry if this is weird," he said, stepping back toward the window. I needed you to know." And then he turned, mask in hand, ready to climb back out. But I stood up and said the only thing I could think of. "Don't go." Mason froze, one foot on the window ledge, his hand tightening around the mask like it was the only thing anchoring him to this moment. He turned his head just enough to look over his shoulder. "You mean that?" I nodded, my heart racing in a way that felt unfamiliar and alive all at once. "Yeah, I do." He stepped back into the room. There was something fragile in the way he looked at me now, like every wall he had ever built was suddenly gone, and he was standing in front of me without armor, without a plan, and without any idea of what I was going to say next. I swallowed hard. "You could have just told me." He gave a dry, shaky laugh. "Yeah, well, I didn't think, 'Hey, I have feelings for you,' would land well in math class." Fair. I sat back down on the bed, running my hand through my hair, trying to slow the storm building in my chest. Truth is, I didn't know how to feel, because part of me, a loud, brave part, had always sensed there was something unspoken between us. But the quieter part, the one trained to ignore things that felt too complicated, had pushed that possibility deep down. Mason had been my constant, my safe place, my person. And now, with 6 words, everything had shifted. He stood in the middle of my room, still in full Spider-Man gear, waiting for me to speak. I looked at him, really looked at him. Messy curls, slight stubble on his jaw, that little scar on his right eyebrow he got when we were 14 and he tried to skateboard off my porch. His chest still rose and fell with nervous breaths, and for the first time in my life, he looked scared. Not the kind of scared you feel when you bomb a test or miss a curfew, the kind of scared you feel when your whole heart is on the line. "Mason," I said slowly, "why tonight?" He took a step forward. "Because it's been eating me alive. And I kept thinking, what if I never say it? What if I spend the rest of my life wondering if I ever had a chance?" The silence between us was warm now, not cold, thick with the weight of unspoken things finally spoken. I stood up and walked over to him. "You're insane. You know that?" He nodded, grinning nervously. "Little bit, yeah." "You could have texted." "I almost did, about 100 times. I looked down at the mask still clenched in his hand. "You climbed 2 stories? In spandex? Just to tell me you liked me?" I wanted to be brave. I smiled, despite the thundering in my chest. "Then take off the suit, Mason. You don't need it." He looked at me, really looked, and slowly peeled off the top half of the costume, letting it fall around his waist. There he was, the real him, t-shirt beneath, skin flushed, eyes wide and searching. And then I did something I hadn't planned. I stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat of his skin, the rise and fall of his chest, the quiet hope in his eyes. Then I touched his hand. "I don't know what this is yet," I said softly, "but I think I've been waiting for you to say it." His breath hitched. "Yeah? Yeah." We stood like that for a moment, tangled in something new, something raw and beautiful. And then, before either of us could overthink it, I leaned in. Not a kiss, not yet. Just a forehead against his. A promise in silence. His fingers closed around mine. "I thought I'd lose you tonight," he whispered. "You didn't." And deep down, I knew. I wasn't the only one who had been holding something in. We both had. The next morning felt different. Not in the dramatic, cinematic way where everything suddenly glows brighter or birds start singing in perfect harmony. No, this was quieter, subtler. Like a song I'd known for years had changed keys, and I was only just starting to hear it. Mason had stayed the night, fully clothed, on the floor, curled up in a pile of pillows and blankets that smelled faintly of laundry detergent and old movie nights. I'd offered the bed. He refused. "I'm not going to risk crossing some invisible line right after what happened," he'd said. "This isn't a movie. It's real." I'd smiled and let him be. But the truth was, part of me wanted him closer. When I woke up, he was already sitting up, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. The top half of his Spider-Man costume was crumpled beside him. Just a red and blue pile of bravery on my bedroom floor. He looked up when he noticed me watching him. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." The awkwardness hung in the air like smoke. Not choking, but hard to ignore. "You okay?" I asked, voice still hoarse from sleep. He nodded. "Yeah, just processing. You?" "Same." Mason rubbed his eyes and yawned. Didn't think about how weird things might feel after. I sat up in bed, crossing my arms over my chest. "It's not weird, just new." He nodded again. "New's good." We didn't talk about what it all meant. Not yet. We didn't define anything. We didn't use labels or talk about the future. We just existed in the same space, now holding something tender between us, something neither of us wanted to drop. But later that afternoon, the outside world found a way to sneak in. We were in the kitchen making grilled cheese, or rather, Mason was attempting it and burning every slice, when my older brother, Ryan, came home unexpectedly. He walked in, saw Mason in his usual hoodie and sweats, and raised a brow. "You stayed over?" "Yeah," Mason said quickly, not meeting his eyes. "Late movie. Crashed on the floor." Ryan chuckled. "Man, you're practically furniture at this point." He grabbed a bottle of water and left the room, completely unaware of the emotional earthquake sitting in the kitchen with us. As soon as he was gone, Mason looked at me. "You didn't tell him?" "Of course not. We just figured this out ourselves last night. I'm not even sure what there is to tell." He nodded slowly, pressing the spatula into the pan too hard. "Right. Mason. It's okay," he said quickly, trying to smile. "I'm not asking you to shout it from rooftops. I'm not even sure if I'm ready for that either." We stood there in silence, the smell of scorched bread filling the air. The moment wasn't angry, just heavy. Then Mason said something that stuck with me all day. "I just don't want to be something you hide." I froze, because deep down, I understood. After he left, I sat in my room, staring at the mask he'd forgotten behind. Red and blue and bold, a disguise that let him tell the truth. I picked it up, turning it in my hands, and I realized I was still wearing a mask of my own. Later that evening, I sent him a text. "Tomorrow, after school, come over. I want to try not hiding." He replied instantly. "Yeah?" "Yeah." "Okay, I'll bring pizza. No Spider-Man suit this time." "Deal." I smiled at my phone, heart thudding. Whatever this was, whatever it would become, we were building it honestly, and I was ready to take off the mask too. The next day crawled. Classes felt longer than usual. Lunch felt quieter. Every time I saw Mason in the hallway, my stomach twisted in that weird mix of excitement and fear. We didn't talk much during the day. just exchanged glances across crowded rooms that meant more than entire conversations. I kept replaying what he said in the kitchen. "I just don't want to be something you hide." That line sat with me like a weight in my chest, because he wasn't wrong. Mason had shown up, literally climbed a wall to show me his truth. And me? I was still calculating who might find out, who might guess, who might say something. After school, I rushed home. I cleaned up my room, threw the Spider-Man mask in the drawer like it was some sacred artifact, and stood by the window waiting for him, even though I knew he'd use the front door this time. At exactly 4:07 p.m., I heard the knock. Not at the window. At the door. And something about that felt important. I opened it, and there he was, hoodie half-zipped, 2 boxes of pizza in hand, and a crooked smile on his face like he wasn't sure he was welcome. "Hey," he said. "Hey." I stepped aside. This time I didn't close the door behind him. He walked into the living room and glanced around, clearly noticing the difference. No one was home yet. My parents wouldn't be back for another hour. Ryan was at practice. We had the place to ourselves. And this time, it wasn't about hiding. "Plain and pepperoni," he said, lifting the boxes. "Wasn't sure what mood you were in." I smiled. I'm in a you-brought-pizza mood. That's always a win. We sat on the couch, legs brushing occasionally, fingers bumping when we reached for the same slice. It was easy, light, like we were trying to get back to normal without pretending last night never happened. About halfway through the second slice, he asked, "So, what now?" I paused, wiped my fingers on a napkin. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are we talking about this? Us?" I looked at him, at his nervous fingers picking at the crust, at the way his foot tapped lightly against the floor like he was bracing for impact. "I want to," I said. "I want to try, but I don't want to rush anything or fake anything. I just want to be real with you." He looked up. "Even when it's hard? Especially then?" His shoulders relaxed a little. We sat in silence again, but the good kind, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then I said, "You know what I realized last night?" "What?" "You didn't wear the mask to hide. You wore it to be brave." He blinked. Yeah, I guess I did." "Well," I said, reaching for his hand, "I think it's my turn." He looked down at our fingers, then back at me. "You sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I think I want to be." And that's when the front door opened. Ryan walked in, headphones in, gym bag slung over his shoulder. He froze when he saw us, eyes dropping to our linked hands, then back to our faces. The room suddenly felt too quiet. Ryan pulled out his earbuds slowly. "Hey," I swallowed. "Hey." He stared for a second longer, then he nodded once. "Cool," he said. "I'm starving. Did you guys eat all the pizza?" Mason blinked. No, there's still some." Ryan walked past us into the kitchen without another word. And just like that, the tension cracked. Not completely, but enough. I turned to Mason, stunned. "That went better than I thought." He smiled, big, full, and real. "I told you, you don't need a mask." I leaned back into the couch, my hand still in his, and for the first time I realized something. This wasn't just a crush. This was something brave, and we were finally both standing in it, unmasked. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope between something new and something we didn't quite have words for yet. Mason and I didn't rush into labels or declarations. We didn't post anything. We didn't update our relationship status. But everything had changed. In the way he smiled at me when no one was looking, the way our fingers brushed a little longer, the way we walked home together even when it meant going out of our way. It was real, and it was quiet, and it was ours. But that didn't mean it was easy. One night, maybe a week after the pizza and the hand-holding, Mason came over again. No costume, no big confessions. Just him. Hoodie, messy hair, and a bag of chips he ate half of before I even got the movie started. We lay side by side on the bed, the TV casting flickering light across the room. My head rested against his shoulder. His thumb traced lazy circles on the back of my hand. It was late. We didn't speak for a long time, and then Mason said, almost like he was afraid of his own voice, "Do you ever wonder if we're making this harder than it has to be?" I turned my head to look at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think about saying something sometimes. Like, just telling everyone, no hiding, no more are they or aren't they looks in the hallway. Just truth." I felt my chest tighten. "Mason," he sighed, pulling his hand away just slightly. Not completely, just enough to let the space between us feel louder. "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not mad. Sometimes I wish I didn't care what people thought. But I do." "So do I," I whispered. "It's not that I'm ashamed. I'm just scared." He nodded. "Me too." We stared at the ceiling, the shadows stretching long across the walls. The room felt full of everything we hadn't said yet. "I had a dream," Mason murmured. "A few nights ago. You were standing in front of a crowd, talking, laughing, and I was in the back, just watching. I wanted to go up there. I wanted to stand next to you, but I couldn't move, and you didn't see me." I swallowed. "That's a terrible dream." He gave a sad smile. "Yeah, but it kind of felt familiar." I reached for his hand again, this time more firmly. "I don't want you in the back," I said, "but I also don't want to rush to the front if I'm not ready. Is that okay?" He nodded slowly. "It is, as long as I know I'm not waiting alone." "You're not." He looked at me then, and for a moment, there were no fears, no doubts. Just his eyes, warm and steady, the way they'd always been. "Do you want to stay the night?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "Won't that make things complicated?" "Maybe," I said, "but we've never been great at simple anyway." He smiled, then pulled the blanket up, sliding closer. The TV buzzed softly in the background, forgotten. As the night deepened, neither of us moved to speak again. We didn't need to. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stay. Even when you're unsure. Even when it's dark. Even when the words won't come. And in that silence, in that unspoken space between hearts trying to heal and trust and hope, we found something solid. Us. Graduation came faster than either of us expected. One minute we were cramming for finals, and the next, we were walking across a stage in borrowed gowns and oversized smiles. Parents cheered, teachers clapped, cameras flashed. But my eyes searched for him. And when I found him, standing off to the side in his cap, holding two diplomas, his and mine, because I'd accidentally left mine on my chair, I felt that rush again. The one I'd only felt for him. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. He handed me the diploma with that crooked grin and said, "Told you I'd be your backup." And in front of everyone, friends, family, strangers, I reached out, took his hand, and didn't let go. That was the moment we stopped pretending we were just friends. No mask, no coded glances, just two boys, 18 years old, holding hands after years of hiding what had always been quietly growing between us. No one said a word, and if they did, we didn't hear it. because his hand in mine felt louder than anything else. Later that night, I found the old Spider-Man suit folded neatly in a box with a note taped to it. I wore this the night I became brave. You're the reason I stayed brave. M. I never told him, but I kept that note. It's still in my drawer, and every time I read it, I remember how love, real love, doesn't always arrive in loud, dramatic moments. If this story made you smile, feel seen, or remember someone who changed your life, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who still believes in quiet love, brave hearts, and masks we no longer have to wear. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is be yourself and be seen.